Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we are breaking down our top five picks. No, what is
And
it? Our picks for the top five and one worst level one bard spells.
burp, burp, burp.
Yeah.
That's Bardic to me for some reason. It's also ushering in the returning knights from war. I don't know where we're at right now, but bard spells are pretty fine.
Um. Yeah. You had something to say before we started recording.
Yeah. So okay. For specifically bards, bards are not prepared casters and they're not wizards, which means they don't have an unending, at least a feeling of an unending quantity of spells. You get like 3. And then you're like, okay, well, we have to work with these 3 to do all of the things that I like my bard to do. It often going to make your bards feel very narrow in focus. So you'll have the bard that is the charmer. You'll have the bard that is the illusory deceiver person doing the illusory deception things. You'll have the support cutting words, sort of disrupting enemy ideas bard, or you'll have the bard that's a little bit of all of that. And I find those characters tend to be the most eclectic. They don't necessarily have a great theme. They can often feel frustrating to play because you don't feel like any of your stuff works in a particularly powerful way. But that's just something whenever we're talking about bard spells, I think quantity you get is important to recognize. Whenever you're going to go and do the bard things, you might have to forgo some large staples to make a larger swath or a larger strength in the pillar that you want to be good at. And there's just considerations whenever you're going through these lists. Like, we're going to pick 5, and out of the gate, you don't get 5 spells as a bard. Out the gate, you get 3. So you're going to be 3 or 2. So you're going to be really, really initially out of having to work with little to go a long distance.
All right. Well, what I was going to say is that this is one of my easiest lists to pick from
Oh, really?
because yes, it just like there are a lot of good options,
There are a lot of very
and
fine options.
but there were some that just felt, all right, this is really bardy,
Oh, that's fair.
and that's kind of yeah. I say easiest to pick because that's how that was my criteria. I was like, ooh, that's perfect for a bard.
Does it
That
feel
fits a bard
bardic?
theme. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, mine aren't necessarily the best because there's some good options like healing word didn't make my list, and
I respect that.
that's yeah. There were other ones that I felt like, oh, that's good. That might even be better than some of the ones I picked. But if I'm playing a bard, this is what I want.
One other small note: bards are ritual casters, which means anything that has a ritual tag automatically is better, but it's not gonna ever be normally the spells you're taking first or second. They're gonna be like, oh, I've got a spare spell alert, I don't know what to get. If you want more things to do, ritual spells are your easy avenue. So like things like detect magic and animal messenger and all the ritual spells out there that are mediocre. I mean, detect magic's pretty good, but all the mediocre ones out there, you're like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll just take a ritual spell here if I already am happy with what I'm already casting.
All right, caveat. Sam ranks his like
Oh, yeah.
best to worst or best to fifth best, and then worst. Mine are just the 5 that I like most in no particular order.
Love that.
With
Ready to
that,
dive in?
what do you got?
All right, my number 1. No one's going to be surprised by this. It's a spell that probably should have only been printed for bards, and I will die on that hill. This should not be a wizard spell. It's Silvery Barbs. Silvery Barbs, not only does it feel like the bard of class, like it's doing everything a bard is supposed to do, it's doing it in an obnoxiously powerful way that will affect the entirety of the game. And if just bards did it, I'd be all for it. I think that's a great pillar for them to have. Wizards have shield, bards can have silvery barbs, and you're like, okay, everyone's got powerful reactions that are for their own classes. And then they gave it to wizards, and I got really annoyed. But as a bard only, in the area where you only have a bard, not a wizard, I think silvery barbs is a home run. If it's not one of the first 2 spells you're taking, it's going to be one of the first 4. It's going to be with you the whole game. It's always going to be good no matter what tier of play you're in. It gives you a person advantage and imposes a disadvantage for a reaction, which is just so obnoxiously cheap. You can't not take it.
Yeah, well, that certainly made my list. That look over the listing, and was that the most bardy of the bard spells that I picked? Because I did pick that one because it was excellent, but it's also, it's like an upgraded vicious mockery.
Yeah.
You're still relentlessly mocking this poor beast, but this time it's doing other things, better
This is,
things.
I think, is actually an interesting place to point out. There are, like, Vicious Mockery is a bard exclusive cantrip.
Hmm.
There are no bard exclusive first level spells. None.
Oh, is that right?
And that's stupid to me. I think this game
Yeah,
would benefit a lot from having some better class distinction. I think having more spells that differentiate the classes to like these are what they're good at, that could be good for the game, I think. So maybe we should.
especially if it's limited to bard and wizard. Wizards get everything. Just
Yeah, Wizards already have all of the bard spell list and then some.
mm. All right. Well, yeah, Silvery Barbs, excellent. There's no question that was going to be both on both our lists.
It's an amazing
Uh,
spell. It's a problem for some tables. It's that good. The spell is yeah, it's busted. What else you got?
Next on my list was Hideous Laughter.
Made
That,
mine.
oh, did it? Okay.
Mhm.
That yeah, again, felt like something Bardy. I'm up on a stage. I'm gonna do some stand up or something, but I can take some of this material and use it in a fight too.
Mhm.
I will
This is another
make you laugh.
spell.
And it's another option for opportunity for role play. You can go two
Agreed.
ways with this. You can either make good jokes and you know that works, and then they're laughing at your hilarious joke, or you can say something lame like people named Karen like to talk to the manager or whatever, and then and they're like cramping and laughing and falling on the floor for that.
And everyone
But
looking at them like, what is wrong with that person
yeah,
if they didn't know you just casted or cast Silver or Hideous Laughter. Yeah. I think Hideous Laughter has so much room to be it fleshes out what kind of comedian you can have your bard be. So you can even do the driest of bards, the bard that is straight-faced all the time with just cutting sarcastic remarks, plays really differently, like appearance-wise, with Hideous Laughter than the very typical suave, got the lute in hand, flirting with everyone bard that makes regular, a below brow or jokes that are not necessarily, they're more commonplace than necessarily the super sarcastic. I think you could take Hideous Laughter and just make a whole character out of it. Just how does my character make things hideous laugh? And it might be like, maybe you have a character that is so stupid and doesn't recognize how dumb they're being that they think they're being funny, but they're actually, what's making the magic happen is people laughing at the attempt. I think all of that could lead to really fun, silly character moments. And it's also just a ridiculously powerful spell. It's my third best here. Another bard wizard spell that should just be a bard spell. But I think it's great. You pick somebody, if they fall prone, everyone got to have advantage on attacks against them, and they're incapacitated. They get to make up saves in the end of turn, but this is about as good as a save or die as you can ask for a first level spell slot. It's incapacitating, it has a meaningful condition stable to it, it's really, really cheap. Excellent.
how do you think the target's feeling during that time? I mean, they're laughing. So
Have you been tickled before, Bob?
oh
As a
yeah, I guess
child?
that's it. Yeah,
I think it's pretty close to that.
tickling while getting beat.
Yeah, someone's got a guy with a mace over top of you smashing your head, and you got the rogue behind him just kicking you, and then you just can't stop laughing.
I'm thinking like Uncle Terry's tickling me while Dad's beating me. That's oh, don't feel good.
All we can do now is laugh.
Yeah.
On that
Oh,
horribly sad note, my next is
yeah.
Sleep. Sleep is my number 2. I love
Ooh,
Sleep.
that's 3 for 3.
Oh, we're 3 for 3? Nice.
Yes.
I think there are more powerful spells in other classes than Sleep on this list. So, if this were not in the Bard class, I don't think I'd rate Sleep this highly. I think Sleep is pretty solid, but it's a very average spell. It's a spell that you take to do some cool things, to be both flexible and utility, out of utility, especially in the early tiers with except low HP. On bards, though, bards are deliberately hamstringed the damage department. They don't have burning hands, they don't have magic missile, they don't have the big bursty damage effects that a lot of the other full casters get. Even compared to druids and clerics, where you get things like spiritual weapon, you get the summon stuff in druid. Bards are pretty above board whenever it comes to, we do support things, period. We do the condition spells, we put things on people. Sleep is the damage spell for bards, in that you incapacitate things based off carrying on hit points, and the incapacitation being an AoE sleep gives you a lot of interesting decisions as to when you want to use it, and it also will feel like you're dropping low-tier fireballs in the early game whenever you make 3 things fall asleep and then just go around and coup de grace them, right? It'll feel very powerful in the early tier as a way that you feel like you're contributing damage-wise, even though you're not really damaging anything, you're just putting them to sleep. Plus, out-of-combat exploration, drop the guard to sleep, it's got 10 hit points, and you can mosey on by without any issues. It's got a myriad of opportunities of using it outside of combat, but I think sleep is excellent. I think more people should put sleep on their character sheet and cast it more often.
I like it also because it can give you, in a fight with a bunch of different people, it can give you like information that you wouldn't otherwise have. Now I know who has the fewest hit points.
Mhm.
Um, but this is one, Hideous Laughter, Silvery Barbs, Bard exclusive all the way, should be. This one I don't have a problem with being on
Yeah,
other spell lists, but I picture the spell differently. A
Mhm.
wizard casting sleep is not the same as a bard casting sleep. Singing a lullaby, strumming lightly on his harp, or
Mhm.
playing pipes or something.
Whereas with
That's
like
a
wizards, I'm envisioning fey magic clouds sort of enveloping and
right.
inhaling more like a gas attack almost, right? I
Mm.
envision there's a lot of different ways that seems to come across between the classes. I think it's pretty fine.
Yeah. All right. So we are 3 for 3. Let's see if
Let's
we can
keep it
keep this
rolling.
streak going.
We're definitely not
Oh,
gonna be 5 for 5 based off your initial point, but we might be 4 for 5. What do you got?
I got Dissonant Whispers.
Disney Whisper did not make my list just because it's
Ah,
not that good, unfortunately.
well, yeah, it made my list for the whole bard thing. Smooth talker.
Oh, I might have been wrong. That might be a Bard exclusive.
Is it?
Let me. I got D&D Beyond pulled up. Let me see. Is Disney Whisper? It's a Bard exclusive spell. I think I know the Great Old One Warlock subclass gets it, but that doesn't really count.
Well,
But
no,
anyway,
that's still exclusive to the list. Yes, I'm looking it up on
on the
D&D
wiki?
Wikidot. Yeah, spell list bard. All right.
Nice. So this is
Well,
a Bard. There is a Bard exclusive spell. Huzzah! I'm glad it made your list because otherwise we wouldn't have talked about it.
yeah. Well, like you said in your written review, it's a save or die that always does something.
Mhm.
Even if they make the save, what is they take half damage. That's not nothing, especially for first level. But full damage, 3d6 psychic damage. That's first level. That's pretty good damage, right?
Yeah, I think this is
And
probably a little bit better than
they
Guiding Bolt.
have to run away.
Yeah. Having to run away is quite powerful. If something ever does fail this, you'll often eat its turn for like a turn or two. That's really, really, really good. 3d6 damage is fine. I think it's a worse save or die than Hideous Laughter by a pretty large margin. Incapacitating something is a way bigger deal than just making a turn and run. It gives you the situational advantage of it being prone. It keeps things where you want them sometimes. There's lots of advantages to Hideous Laughter over this. At the same time, this is stable to 3d6 damage. This is a effect that I think you're gonna have a really easy time wanting to cast. And if you are in the market as a bard to say, I want a point and click damage option, I want to be able to actually do 3d6 damage to something in the early tiers, yeah, this is pretty solid.
Yeah, you say hideous laughter is better, like that's the definitive objective truth, but
It's
I
not
think
always better,
it
but it
depends on
often will
what
be.
you need out of your spell.
Absolutely. So if you need 3d6 damage right now, and if you
Yeah.
can't risk it passing the save, this will be at least half of 3d6 damage. That's pretty solid.
All right. Dissonant Whispers also feels kind of bardy.
Oh yeah,
I'm still what
a
what are
million
you
percent.
picturing when the spell is cast?
I picture the bard whispers something horrible under his breath, points at somebody, and they hear this ringing echo of it in their brains. But it can be any other number of things. You
Okay,
can
because
also
I'm picturing just some silver-tongued guy whispering something, and I don't know that they hear something horrible. I think they hear what he said. It
yeah,
just
that's the horrible
hurt.
thing.
All right, yeah, all right, yeah. Okay, I guess we're picturing it pretty much the same then.
To be fair, I also love the imagery. So games like Pokemon have Uproar, where it makes a bunch of music notes and sound waves come out of the Pokemon. I think that as Dissonant Whispers is very funny to me, where like you would see physical music notes or physical like lines of dialogue over top of paper just wafting through the air and bashing someone's head in. I think that's very funny. I like magic that looks cheesy like that, and it's also the kind of bards that I enjoy playing are ones that actually hit people with books. So that's the kind of direction I would often take my Dissonant Whispers.
So I see it a lot more subtle, like
That's fair.
a wisp of smoke escaping the
Oh.
lips and entering the ear, and then
If I'm ever playing a bard, subtlety is the last thing on my mind. I'm going for
well,
as loud and obnoxious a bard all
not
the time as
usually,
possible.
but this is a whisper.
Sure. This absolutely does play on a whole variety of bards. There are bards that are rogues in disguise, that are cloaked figures using their magic to sort of sneak through life and cut deals and steal things from people and deceive their way through reality. And those bards, this is an easy inclusion on making that character feel evil, and not necessarily evil, but shady and cutting and deceptive, and it's pretty good for them.
All right. We are 3 for 4 now.
3 for 4.
What else do you have?
I love Detect Magic, so it's my number 4. Detect Magic is, I think so far we're 3 for 3 for me for classes, first level spells with the option of Detect Magic. It's showing up on every single list. It is really useful in the early game. It's a ritual spell, and Bard's a ritual caster, so you can take this and just feel like it's a feature. And it's a pretty good, meaningful feature when it comes to engaging exploration. It's pretty useful to be able to point at something and know out the gate if it's magical. It makes it so magical traps have to be a little bit more involved than just stepping on magical trap, right? You have to actually have engaging mechanism for the players to interface with. Otherwise, the players can just go around what they deem as magical. And it asks your DM to not use the really crappy design traps. It asks your DM to use a little bit more complex encounters with their magical devices, with their magical objects. It lets the players know this is a shady object. Let's investigate this. It gives them sort of a jumping off point to go in a bunch of different directions. I've talked at length about this spell, and I will continue to talk at length about it because I think it's worth taking. I don't know if on a Bard I'm taking it at level 1, but probably around 3rd or 4th level, I'm going to try and find room for most games.
Yeah, I regretted not putting this on my wizard list. I made sure to put it on my cleric list. However, I did give it some consideration for this list. At first I thought, well, that's more of a wizard kind of thing. But then I thought, a bard, probably, traveled around a bit, learned some things. Detect Magic can fit into that.
Yeah, I kind of envision where the wizard, like, their vision changes and they see the schools of magic and they get like arcane runes floating around in space, beautiful mind style, right? I envision bards just kind of know, right? They look at that and they go, oh no, yeah, I heard a story about a guy that touched one of those runes and it exploded in his face. It's probably evocation magic in that, right? Right. Like that's how I envision bards interfacing with Detect Magic a little bit more of just word of mouth, a little bit of just like I have a hunch, and that hunch just happens to be right. And I think that's a really fun flavor difference you can make for the spell.
All right, well, let's see what else I've got. We no sleep. We did sleep already. I guess that leaves me with just one left.
What's left?
I picked Charm Person.
That was close to making mine. It did not, though. I like Charm Person a lot. I just find it, the longer I've played, the less value I find it has.
Yeah, I picked it because what's more bard than that?
That's really true.
Yeah,
that it? Just very bardic?
I think so. I mean, I don't know why. That was my thinking when I chose the spell. But have we done a Charm Person video?
I don't think so.
We probably should.
So the charmed condition is pretty good. It being something to use as a saber die in combat is fine. Although it'll get advantage if you're fighting it, so you have to kind of like prep the combat with it. Be like, okay, wait, we're about to go into this fight. Don't wait for my signal. And then you go and you go, hi, everybody. And they give you kind of like where it looks like, why are you entering into this dungeon? We're going to stab you in a second. And then you go, great, Charm Person, the bugbear. And now we fight. And the bugbear leaves you alone. And that's fine, right? I find that happens almost never. And more often than not, this is used to sort of get advantage on all your charisma checks out of combat with the target. But then you have the friends problem where they'll know that you charmed them. And that's
well, yeah, see, I'm seeing it as utility. You charm somebody, you get what you need out of them, and then who cares later on? You're never going to see this guy again.
You say that, and then you return to that town 2 weeks
later.
Later. This big poster
in the
that's
moment.
out, don't deal with this human. This human charms people. It's very illicit to control my brain kind of deal.
Yeah, but I'm a bard. I'm not thinking about the future.
That's fair. And maybe you don't come back to this town. And it's also going to vary table to table. There'll be more situations where some people will be like, oh, you charm me? That's just how this world works. That's fine. Whatever. I'm not that bad out of shape about it. We had a great night anyway. Right? Like, your DM, it's definitely going to vary based on DM. But I think that there's plenty of room for you to get some decent social with this. I find that if I'm doing social encounters, most of the time I have information I want my players to end up with. And how they get that information normally doesn't require charisma checks to actually successfully obtain it. And it ends up being more charisma checks to see how they're sitting in the world goes, how the world around them is sort of engaging with them, if they're trusted, if they're wanted, if other people are overhearing, right? That's where I tend to leave. The more I DM, that's the more I find that's how charisma checks tend up functioning. And it makes Charm Person a lot worse because it's just sort of, you don't need it for the interrogation. You don't need it for getting something out of somebody. Most of the time I want that information because it's where they're going to head next to get to them, get to the players, which makes it less important, I think. But there are a lot of
So-
tables that do have barriers that you got to get this out of this person to move forward. That's how they get it.
Well, it sounds like you cut the balls off Charm Person in your game.
Listen, a little bit, but there are many tables out there that function in a similar vein, and the spell gets harder and harder to cast at those kinds of tables.
All right. Well, am I right? You're down to one more?
Yep. My last one is one that you said did not make your list, and the only reason I made my list is because it's the only healing spell you'll ever take on bards, and that's Healing Word. It's useful. You love it for action economy. It's a bonus action. You bring somebody up and you fire your short bow shot. You bonus action, bring someone up and viciously mock the thing attacking them. You get someone off of 0 when you need to get somebody off of 0, and that is useful. If you're a bard, you're often going to be expected to have some amount of healing because you can have some amount of healing. If you pick this up at 2nd level, you'll be exactly as efficient at healing as you'll ever need to be, and you won't have to ever look at a healing spell ever again. And you'll be really happy with that. And it'll be efficient. It'll give you the action economy you need. It'll make some unwinnable fights winnable. And that's all you can ask out of healing magic, and that's all it needs to do.
Yeah, somebody in the party needs this.
Yeah.
And to be on the safe side, 2 people probably should have it, just in case the one that has it goes down.
I would say most parties will want to have a person that has access to healing magic to some variety. This is the best version of that healing magic. So if you have a paladin, it's probably good enough a lot of the time. Unless it'll vary on your DM. If you're playing with super lethal DMs, 2 people with Healing Word is more important. But for the most tables where you're not playing with super lethal encounters, if you have a paladin and another healer in the group with any access to Healing Word usually is it, you're good.
All right. Well, we've talked about Healing Word enough on this channel. I guess
if you want to hear more about it, I would point to I think it's our Cure Wounds video. I talk at length as to why that spell isn't good. I have a whole monologue. I'm proud of that monologue, and I stand by it. Check that out.
Yeah, if you want, you can also check out our Healing Word video.
Also that.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the Cure Wounds is probably more entertaining. All right.
I feel like I was a broken man, just like, all right, we're going over this one last time.
All right, I guess that brings us down to the worst.
I struggled with my worst. Did you?
A little bit, yeah. There were some other contenders. I ultimately wound up choosing Distort Value.
Oh, I didn't even see that. If I would have seen that, I would have picked Distort Value. You're absolutely right. Okay, yeah. Talk about why Distort Value is bad.
It doesn't do anything.
That's the greatest answer you can ask for.
Yeah, people are gonna say, they're gonna comment, oh, I pulled this thing and pulled this ruse and whatever. I don't think it's ever really happening, and I mean, I'm calling them liars right now, so that's probably not nice.
Here's the bigger point. If it is happening, what's actually being accomplished in the game state? And the answer is nothing of value. The answer is you're spending 45 minutes shopping where you should have spent 5, is what the answer to that question is, right? So your gold doesn't matter almost ever. It's a random gate for some spells, but you really don't care if it does that. And then if you care to do the effect where you want to cut someone on money, you want to wear down their goods, or you want to sell something for more, Charm Person is a spell that we didn't even touch on that use case, but that's a great thing that Charm Person can do if you for some reason value that. Friends can do that better than Distort Value can. Distort Value lets you do one kind of negotiation, and that's price adjustments. And then it's like illusory, so they can tell what's happening with it. You're not even affecting their mind. You're not affecting the object. You could just use mundane means to say, hey, this is Nick.
I mean, there's role playing.
Yeah. Any amount of deception checks will do what Distort Value does better, and it won't make you look like a con man in doing it. The only reason I defend Distort Value is it'll teach new players, this is how I get to play this character. And I think as a new player learning tool, it's not the end of the world. If I were running a one-shot with a Charlatan character sheet, I'd probably have, if it was aimed at new players, I'd probably have Distort Value on that if I knew in the one-shot there would be a bargaining scene. There would be a scene where they needed to go shopping for something. Then maybe Distort Value makes that list. That is the only instance where I think that spell has any value whatsoever, and that's not very high value. That goes off that character sheet the moment they hit 2nd level. So,
I saved 15 silver pieces on turnips.
Okay, this is actually a moment I will talk about. So there's a game system called Blades in the Dark, and Blades in the Dark is great in that it has a fairly complex system that narrows down complexity into much more manageable topics. So it's opposed to having currency like gold and silver and platinum. They have coin, and you get instances of 1, 2, 3, 4 coin, and the rest of it is assumed that your character scrounges together enough, has enough little loose change in their offhand, is doing work that gets them a little bit of money here and there, right? D&D kind of has that with lifestyle, but basically just says, if it costs less than a coin, ignore its cost. And that is so valuable. I would recommend to everyone in Dungeons & Dragons, if it costs less than a gold, it's free. That's my general recommendation. And obviously you don't want players to go, well, I'm going to go get an infinite amount of rope because it's free. No, they can get a little bit of rope. You have some regular boundaries, but if you're dealing with gold economy, if it costs less than a gold, don't worry about it. That's a waste of everyone's time.
All right. Well, what's your worst?
Oh yeah, that was really off topic. My worst is Illusory script, which was the one I thought of before you told me Distort value was on this list, which definitely is.
That was definitely one of the contenders.
Yeah, it's a ritual spell, and I have a really hard time giving ritual spells worst ever, especially on ritual casters. But Illusory script really doesn't do anything. Like, it is, again, it's another one of those spells where you could do this in a mundane way and probably have more fun with it. You really want to be like a rogue with Thieves' Cant doing these kinds of things. You want to make like ciphers and codes and stuff. You can do that without Illusory script. You don't need to have any spells that do that. You don't need to waste the 10 gold pieces to do this. There's no really great reason to put this on your sheet ever, I don't think.
I mean, I think it's fine, but I just don't foresee opportunities to. I mean, just the types of games I've played using that, I can't think of the mechanics of how it would work at a table. Like,
you get this like weird moment where you want to make one specific person get specific information, but you want it to be in the public space. So then you like illusory script something onto a bulletin board, and then the one person sees it and they see it as different than other things. So they get the intended message. So there's like some subtlety there and there. But then I'm like, if your goal is to get a message to a person, there's gotta be a dozen different mundane ways to do that doesn't require illusory script. And that's such a niche situation where you're in a situation where you can't be seen with the other person. You can't be within message range of the other person, right? You can't have any of these other mundane means of getting this information to this individual that you would need illusory script to do it. Maybe you're going out of town, but like if you're going out of town, do you really care? And 99% of D&D tables, I don't think so. I don't know.
I find it more like, but what if it's like an official document, like a will or something, and you want it to say something different, like I left, Bob the Barbarian all my money. And
so to the judge, it says, I left Bob the Barbarian all my money, and to everyone else, it's just the regular will.
Right.
I'm sure there will be no problems with that plan whatsoever.
Again, you leave town immediately.
I'm just envisioning, like, you get there and you're like, I've done this illusory script. Had I been able to spend the minute or 11 minutes if you don't want to spend a spell slot on this with the will. So you had access to the will. You cast something on it, and then you're like, here you go, judge. Yeah. Everyone else has to go. Everything's above board there. Nothing fishy going on there.
You have to first get a job as a bailiff and then work a few years so you don't arouse any suspicions.
Sure.
I'm grasping at straws here. I don't ever foresee this spell being used at any table I play at.
To be fair, though, you did point out there are some instances where it can be used, whereas I think Distort value really, no. Where illusory script, there are cases where it does something that nothing else can, but they're very few. There are very few cases. It does do that. There's no situation where Distort value does something that nothing else can. None whatsoever. It's a mundane effect on a spell for no particular good reason. So I think you're right. I think that's the worst part spell.
Before we close out, did you have any other contenders on here? I felt like I had a few.
I wanted Silent Image to make my list, but I couldn't in good conscience do it because it gets outclassed really fast, and Minor Illusion does its job well enough.
I was talking about contenders for worst.
Oh, for worst? I think Bane's quite bad.
Yeah, but Bane does something. You could use that every now and again.
You can play a character that wants to weaponize Bane and have it feel fine. If you, as long as you're getting at least 2 things to fail it, which you are most of the time, it'll be whatever. It's still worse than Bless, but they don't get Bless. So
yeah, there are a lot more contenders for better ones. Like I'm sad I didn't have room in my top 5 for Disguise Self. That
that
feels
was literally
party.
my next honorable mention was Disguise Self. I really wish could have made my list too, because it's also it's a spell I definitely prioritized on bards because it's really fun.
Yeah. Identifies good, but not super party.
It's another spell again, ritual. You take it down the road as
Yeah.
I've already had with the spell list. I'll just take another ritual on my character sheet. That seems fine. The bard spell list isn't particularly robust, but they are consistently quite good. Even things like Unseen Servant and Speak with Animals, again, they're ritual spells. It's harder on bard to find the space to take those, but if you do have room and you really want to be the bard that communes with the squirrels, and you want to have that eclectic character that's outside that loves dogs so much they just talk to dogs, you can do that with Speak with Animals if you want to. And that's definitely fits a lot of the bard playstyles. It fits a lot of the bard personality, force of charisma that is the bard class. I think I think Thunderwave's one you might want to steer clear of. I think you don't really need damaging spells if you're playing a bard.
Yeah.
If you do, take Dissonant Whispers. Otherwise, for the most part, I think understanding what your lane is, understanding that you're signing up to play a charisma out of combat character that is a support in combat that does some pretty devastating, debilitating effects with stuff like Silvery Barbs, going into the class with those expectations, I think you're gonna have a good time. And most of the spells on their list fit that well enough that you can get some good utility out of most of it.
All right, you want to go over your list again?
My number 1, Silvery Barbs. Crack spell. If you're going to take anything away from this list, take that one. 2 sleep, 3 hideous laughter, 4 detect magic, and 5 healing word.
And your worst?
Illusory script.
Okay. Let me find my list again. I had Silvery Barbs, Hideous Laughter, Dissonant Whispers, Sleep, and Charm Person, with the worst being Distort Value. As always, we are interested to know what you thought of our list, and we'd love to hear about your personal picks. So let us know down in the comments, and like and subscribe and all that. This has been Level 1 Bard Spells. Stay tuned next week for Level 2 Bard Spells, and go watch our Wizard and Cleric spell list as well. Thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it, a gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.